Dave Smith here. So this is going to be another video in the Photobooks zines series, and I've got a great little book to share with you here. It's called Shots from the Hip, Another Way of Looking Through the Camera by alias Johnny Stiletto. That's not actually his name, that's an alias. Okay. If I can find the photographer, I'll put his website in the description. Now, when I had decided to travel long term, a couple of years ago now, I essentially got rid of most of my photo books. This was one that I did not get rid of. I put this in storage. One that I did get rid of and do regret is Snaps by Elliot Erwitt, which is a brilliant book, and I'm probably going to have to get another one of those. But this one I kept. Now, it's essentially a street photography booklet, and you can see I've marked off actually quite a whole load of images to share with you, because actually this book is packed with really great images. But what I like most of all about this book is that each of the images, and this is not one that I've marked off, each of the images comes with a little backstory, some are longer than others, and that really helps. Now, captioning photographs, I think, is a bit of a controversial thing, because as soon as you title a photograph or any piece of art, as soon as you put a title on, you're telling the audience what to think, and that's kind of counterproductive to art. It's kind of not what art should be in many respects. So captioning and titling are difficult things, but in this context I think it is absolutely right, and I've really enjoyed reading those backstories, and for some images they are necessary, and that, I guess, brings this selection of images into sort of photojournalism to a degree, maybe. But this question about what is art and what constitutes art photography, we're going to come back to in some subsequent videos, because I've been giving some thought to this quite a lot recently. Anyway, what I'm going to do now is what I normally do with these videos, is just take you through some of the images inside, and I'm going to share some of these backstories or bits of these backstories with you, so you can see what I mean. I can't recommend this highly enough. It's a brilliant, brilliant little book. So if you do get a chance to get one, do yourself a favour and pick it up. If you've got one, I'd love to hear what you think about it, and what your thoughts are. But let's take a closer look at some of the images and backstories. Okay, here we go. So I've marked, as I say, I've marked off really quite a lot. I'm not sure we'll get through all of these, but let's see how it goes. So here's my first. Now, this is an interesting little shot. It's the kind of image that I've had in my mind for a little while, and it is just a photograph of some lady's shoes. And if you think about shoes and what they mean for women, this is potentially quite an important shot. And in this backstory here, he says, in London shoes talk. They have a language all their own that speaks of success and failure. And so yes, there's a rationale, and there are more images through the book of shoes, and I'll show you one right at the very end that's a little bit about that. Now, this image I wanted to share, not because of the image, because the image doesn't really do anything for me. It's just a shot of the back of some bloke. But in the backstory, he says, most people dislike being photographed in the street by total strangers, and it's something I hate doing. so that was quite interesting, and so he's taking this from behind. Now there's obviously a lot more to this story, but it struck me that was quite an interesting sort of counterpoise to the likes of Bruce Gilden, who I have to say has a photographic style that I despise. I think his images are dreadful. I think his behaviour as a photographer is reprehensible, and I have literally no time whatsoever for Bruce Gilden or his like. And I've seen one or two other photographers who take that highly aggressive approach, and frankly people like that deserve all they get. But I think this goes kind of swings the pendulum too far the other way. You know, if you're worried about taking the picture, then don't take it. There's something excuse me, there's something inside you that's telling you that for you that's wrong, so don't do it. So this image doesn't speak much to me, but the words I think are quite important and worth consideration. Excuse me. Now this one, I hope you can see that. This one is also taken from the back. But this is a completely different picture. Now, I'm just going to let you sort of look at that for a moment. And you see a sort of elderly gentleman here and a much younger chap here. And in fact, this is Mick Jagger. And this is his manager. His manager is Baron somebody or other. He might tell me if I glance through here. Not seeing it right off, but that's who they are. And when you know that, you see, this is where I think the caption really helps here, because if you just look at that photograph, it would be an ardent fan indeed who recognised that as Mick Jagger. But when you're told it's Mick Jagger, and in particular you can see by the set of the shoulders and what his feet are doing, that yes, indeed, that is Mick Jagger. And this then turns out to be his manager. And this is one of my favourite images in this book, by far, and indeed pretty much anywhere. And he says in here that he had thought about running around and taking the shot from the front, but decided on this view. And I think he's absolutely right, because then the story is much deeper. One of my favourite images in the book, absolutely brilliant. Then I was quite taken by this as well. Now, for me, an image like this is why film is so good, and why digital isn't. You know, and I'm going to come back to this question about digital and art and photography and what photography means in a later video. But he's basically driving along behind this Porsche in one of the tunnels in London, and he's holding his camera in one hand and steering in the other. So, you know, don't do this at home. And it's a very, very atmospheric picture. And I think somewhere in here he says he was at what was he at? F4 or something. Let me just have a quick glance through and see if I can see. Alright, an eighth at f4 is what he says. So he's shooting this at eighth of a second, his camera's set to f4, he's got it in one hand, he's clicking away and flicking the advance lever behind this Porsche, and this is the image. And I really like the image because it speaks to me about that distinction between film and digital. More on that in another video. This I quite liked, again, as much for the backstory as for anything else. And he'd just seen these two chaps, and he's taking an image of something that interests him, not necessarily an image that he likes, And that was an interesting distinction, I think. I like this image just because I like the image. I like this idea of sort of recording the urban decay, and so I just like the image. Then we've got this. This I thought was very clever, because what he's doing here is, well, just take a little moment and have a look at that image. And he, for me, at first glance, I'm seeing somebody at prayer, and in isolation, and that was his intention. But in fact, this is an art student sketching at a gallery, and what he's done is to choose his framing to exclude the context of the scene, to let us read into that image. And I think that's very much at the heart of art and photography. And in an image like that, you wouldn't get the truth of that situation without the caption. And the question is, should we have the caption in an image like that at all? And this goes to that wider question of what's the truth of photography, and there's some really quite interesting arguments around that. And I'll come back to this idea when I talk about I'm going to do a video about what am I currently reading, and there's some texts in there that come back to this idea of truth in photography. Now, if you want a piece of art, and I think that is a very artful image, leave out the title, leave out the caption, and let us read into that image what comes out of what the audience's experience brings to the image. Really quite a brilliant little photograph there. This is one of my favourites. This was just shot in a cafe, an old lady in a cafe in London. Just a great social documentary type photograph. And then the last one I'm going to show you is this one, and this is to do with the Guards Parade. These are the guards, and there are these little sort of slits in the wall that people can look through to the behind the scenes of the guards getting ready. And these two empty, old, worn, slip-on shoes here are the key to this image. And the idea is that when the guards have got their boots on, they can't walk in them, which seems to be a bit wrong. You know, certainly if I wear my boots, I'm wearing them so I can walk comfortably. But apparently they can't walk in them, so they go to the grounds wearing these old shoes, then put the boots on, then get on the horse. But this was just another little shot that was around shoes, and this is his closing image. And he says here that it's the kind of image that would often be in the back of a magazine with a title saying "Last Word," and indeed it is the last word in his little book here. So that's just a little glimpse through Johnny Stiletto's shots from the hip. I really like this. I like that idea of shooting from the hip. I did a little series of my own at the Brocante in Ixelles a few years ago in Brussels, where I was just walking around with my camera and a wide-angle lens, sort of finger on the focus button, and as I saw something that I liked, I didn't even pick the camera up. I just hit the focus and clicked the shutter, and that worked really well. So it's a style that I like, one that I might make more use of in the future. So I hope you found that interesting. As I say, this is one of my favourite books of all time on photography. It's absolutely brilliant. Highly recommend it. As I said earlier, if you've got one, let me know. Let me know what you think. If you are encouraged to go find one, and you do find one, I'd love to hear what you think. Thanks very much for watching. Bye for now.